Okay, so Be'ezras Hashem, we are continuing with our weekly shirim on the Ramchal's Adir BaMarom, his commentary on the Ijer Rabbah. And again, the stated intention of starting to teach these classes, very similar to the classes that we began teaching on the introduction to the Zohar about a year ago, was that this is a book far beyond any of the insight that we'll be able to gain from this book, far beyond any of the illumination that a person can have as a result of understanding this book. The mere reading of the words and the mere access to the ideas that were drawn down by Rabbeinu Moshe Chaim Luzzatto is the main purpose of studying this text, to awaken the koach of the neshama of the Machaber, a tzaddik like Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, who was koilel trained Mashiachin, who represented the connectivity between Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David, the ability to rectify this world and to draw down spirituality into it, to fill it with its purpose. The light of the Ramchal is a light that our generation needs so desperately. It's a light that each and every person needs so desperately. The Ramchal's yahrzeit is on Yesod, should be a sod, representative of the fact that it's the Nakuda of the Tzaddik within the Tzaddik, the Nakuda of Mashiach ben David that's Mislabish within Mashiach ben Yosef, of Moshe Rabbeinu's Mislabish within Mashiach, and the two Tzaddikim, Mashiach ben David, Mashiach ben Yosef, the Chochmah and the Bina, and the two-sided nature of Jewish experience throughout history, throughout every moment of history. There's never been a time where we needed this tzaddik more. We need this tzaddik to be ma'ir, all the koyach of the other tzaddikim, to be ma'ir the ratzon ha'elyon from Mashiach Tzidkenu Barachim Rabim, by way of Moshe Chaim, by way of drawing Moshe Rabbeinu into Eretz Yisrael, into Eretz HaChaim, and through that proper orientation of understanding that this sefer, Adir BaMarom, is a vessel that Rabbeinu Moshe Chaim Luzzatto formed to be able to contain the light of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's words in the Ijer Rabbah. And as we know, like the Ramchal himself already pointed out, that the entirety of the Ijer Rabbah, the secret technology of the Ijer Rabbah, which enables us to gain access to spiritual powers that are inaccessible to us other than the technology opened up by the tzaddikim, that really is a light that's drawn down from Moshe Rabbeinu, that Moshe Rabbeinu is Ali Salamarim B'Shavis Shevet Lakachal Matanos Mebnei Adam. Moshe Rabbeinu went up to draw down Shimon Bar Yochai, to draw down the light of Rashbi. Rashbi placed that light into the Zohar HaKadosh, which means that it's accessible anytime we would like to access it or learn it. And Rabbeinu Moshe Chaim Luzzatto opened up the Ijer Rabbah in such a way that each and every one of us can find ourselves within the writings, within the ideas, within the narrative structure, within the blank space between the black letters within the blank space, and learning the Sefer and trying to connect to the Sefer in accordance with our limited understanding should be ma'oyer a schus for Klal Yisrael, should be ma'oyer the Ratzon Ha'elyon, to be ma'oyer the Rachamim Rabim Mashiach Tzidkenu, and goodness in Bana Chayu Mizona, and that each and every person should be able to taste of Geula, to re-enter into Gan Eden, which is what this book enables a person to do. So we are entering in now into the text itself of the Ijer Rabbah, and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is setting up the urgency and the emergency type of situation which demands the uncovering and the revelation of secrets of Torah that had not been revealed until then. Tikkunim Rabim, rectifications that were being done by Rabbi Shimon v'Chavrayav in the secret of the balancing act, because they had come to see that the world was still operating in a place of Tohu. There was no balancing, there was no mitkala. We said that the mitkala is that teaching that's revealed. Rav Itchamayr Shlita said that he heard in the name of that he heard from Rav Moshe Shapiro Schus Yagan Aleinu that his Iker Achiza in Torah was drawn from the Vilna Gaon's nature and understanding of the mitkala, the balancing scales that are described in the introduction to the Safra Ditzniusa with the Gra's commentary on it. And Ishbitz and Radzin also take a lot from this Nakuda of the Mitkala. We said that the world needs to balance upon two stable balancing acts. It has to be the Shin and the Shin, the Yichud of Chagas and the Yichud of Nahi, the light of the right and the light of the left, the light of above and the light of below, in order so that the Yisoid, which is the secret of Rabbi Shimon, which is the secret of Moshe Rabbeinu, can be mashpia properly. That's the secret of the train bayin. But when those are not balanced properly, so we have only one side of balancing. It's either Netzach or Hod, either the left or the right, either darkness or light, but not both and at the same time, and that's the deficiency of the Mitkala. The Vilna Gaon's entire Mitzias was the revelation of this Panemius of Das, the capacity to reveal the unity between the Klal and the Prat, between Torah Shebechsav and Torah Shebal Peh, between Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and Rabbi Akiva. And that's why perhaps we know that the Gra hints to the fact that everything can be found in the Torah. It says it explicitly multiple times in his Biur on Safra Ditzniusa. And famously, that means each and every person, each and every experience, each and every dimension of the person's particular experiences can be uncovered with the proper orientation to the potency inherent within each os in the Torah. And the Vilna Gaon was asked where he is hinted to, and he said, that's easy. I'm hinted to in Evan Shlema. Evan Shlema is Eliyahu ben Shlomo, which is the secret of the Vilna Gaon. But we can also understand from this week's parsha that the Evan Shlema is literally this mitgala. It's the balancing act. It's the assurance that there will be the kav of mishpat, that yichud of the in-between that collects the beginning and the end together to allow them to be unified as one in the centermost point. That's the secret of the mitgala, and that's the secret of where the Vilna Gaon is hidden in the secret of the Evan Shlema, that a person has to balance things and weigh things properly. The scale must be weighed properly. There must be a balancing act. The das must be the primary way in which a person approaches any spiritual activity in this world through the secret of the Shvil HaZahav that the Rambam describes so powerfully. And right after Evan Shlema, if Evan Shlema is not done properly, so we see that's when Amalek attacks, because the avodah of the Vilna Gaon, the avodah of Mashiach ben Yosef, is the avodah of engaging and protecting us from the onslaught of Amalek. So if we can balance things properly, and we have the das of the Mitgala, we have the two-sided nature of things balanced properly, so then we don't have to worry about the attack of Amalek. But when it is, the world is teetering on the edge, and there's only one side, and there's no balance, and it's operating like a seesaw, Ratzav V'Shov, Kamari HaBazek, so that's when the scales are not oriented properly, and that's when Amalek can attack. So the secret of the Gra is the secret of the Mitgala, it is the secret of Eis Lasos LaHashem Hifrus Orasecha, like the Zohar Kadosh says, Ad emas kai alma al chad samcha. How long will the world titter on the edge of one balancing act without the doubled nature of the sasa noichi alimrasecha kamotze shalarav, on the secret of the emes and not the sheker? When it's only one bond, it's sheker because it's contingent and it could fall apart. When it's a double bond, so that's the secret of kaflayim letoshia, of mara samachpeil, Mara Samachpela, of the Chitzonius and the Panemius, of the inside and the outside, above and below being revealed to be inherently connected. And that's the secret of Sheish. That's the secret of the Vav HaChibor, and that's the secret of the Mitkala, which is what we need. But Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai woke up and he said, the world is not going to make it. We don't have that operating principle of the Mitkala. So it's Eis Lasos LaHashem Hifru Sarasecha. I need to take on more responsibility, says Rabbi Shimon, than other people. The Ramchal says, in spite of the fact that we're unworthy of taking on more responsibility, b'makom shein ish ish, when things are not operating properly, when it's an Eis Lasos LaHashem Hifru Sarasecha, other people are not focusing on what needs to be done. We must dig down deep into ourselves to live in accordance with a strength that we know we have, but we don't have access to, and we need to live as if we have access to it. And in spite of the fact that in other situations that might be seen as a pagam, in our generation, in our time period, when it's an Eis Lasos LaHashem, where a person has to ensure the continuity of Jewish faith in each and every moment, a person has to ensure the continuity of the balancing act between concealment and revelation, to wait even longer for the time necessary to bring about Mashiach Tzidkenu within Galus itself. So for that, we need to make the Mitkala, and that means people, individuals whose heart moves within them, to uncover the potency that rests within their soul, to do more than they actually are capable of doing, to tap more into the light of Pnimius HaTorah in spite of the fact that they're not holding by those madrigos, to let go of the ego ramifications of not being good enough in our own eyes, which would theoretically prevent us from providing the light that is necessary for others. It's an Eis Lasos LaHashem Hifrus Orasecha. We have to throw every ounce of medicine upon the nation, every ounce of medicine upon ourselves, to uncover the potency and the healing principles and the sha'ashun da'araisa of Pnimius HaTorah, Befrat, the Torah of Rashbi and the Zohar HaKadosh. So that's the secret of Eis Lasos LaHashem Hifrus Orasecha. So the next line in Rabbi Shimon's kind of reasoning for opening up these secrets that theoretically he should not be able to reveal, these technologies which were not yet ready to be revealed, but without them we wouldn't survive, so there was a need to reveal them. So Rabbi Shimon goes on and he says, Human Zeirin, the days are short. Umara dachayva dachik, and the debt collector is pressuring. There's something pushing upon the person, making them live with a sense of urgency. And the days are short, meaning time feels like it's moving quickly. And there's a transiency that is unleashed upon the world. And a person is aware of the transiency and the delicate nature of the days and the time. They move quickly. There's an urgency. Something is pushing on us. There is a voice that is cried out each and every day. So the Ramchal is going to explain to us over here, what does it mean human Zeirin? What does it mean short days? Short days implies long days. If there's human Zeirin, there's human Aruchin. And if there's long days and short days, then we have to properly understand the difference between these two modalities of days, these two modalities of measuring time and experience. And we have to also understand how this awareness is meant to create a certain sense of urgency, an urgency that says, wow, if I don't do it now, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get to do it because this moment won't arrive again. So so the Ramchal is going to be masbir what human Zeirin are. And in order to introduce just terms that we may not be familiar with, so the Ramchal is operating within the universe of Rabbeinu HaArizal. Obviously, the Ramchal is nothing without the Arizal. The Ramchal is coming to be mashlim. The light of the Arizal is coming to mashlim it b'derech machshava rather than b'derech ma'aseh. Is coming to fix it in a different way than what the Arizal revealed. But without the Arizal, we don't have any aspect of the Ramchal. And God forbid to think like certain tzaddikim felt in their generation, which is what the Leshem Shubha V'Chaloma really picked up on and fought a very important battle, as we're going to see in accordance with this Nakuda. But if a person takes the Ramchal without the Arizal, then a person can, God forbid, come to destroy the whole system because they might think that all that there is the metaphoric meaning and not the kind of metaphor itself. And a person might come to think that my job is to uncover the psychological or historical awareness that comes out from these kind of foreign ideas of the Partsufim and the way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world. But Rahmana L'daise Mehaidas, Rahmana L'tzlan Mehaidaise, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu for protect us from such a way of thinking where the language of the Arizal doesn't matter anymore, God forbid, and all that matters is the attempt to demetaphorize it in accordance with our understanding. Because what that does is create a profound sense of arrogance to imply that I can grasp something that the Arizal or the generations prior were not capable of grasping, and Bays, that implies the notion that I could perhaps come to understand anything absolutely about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is tantamount to heresy in the sense that Ana Emloch, when I come to live with that sense of perfection and perfectibility within myself, ultimately, if I think I can grasp something, I'm going to come and make a god out of myself. The entire edifice of Pnimius Torah is to come to teach over and over that Tachlis Hayadiyah Shaloi Neda, that we don't know anything, and that's what we start with. And any language that we're using is only describing expressions of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but never the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So to forget that what is true is the Arizal's metaphors, and those metaphors cannot be understood. Those metaphors can only be expressed in the way that the Arizal expressed them in the secret of the visions beheld by the tzaddikim amitim, in the hopes of transforming that into our own lived experience. And then, with that awareness, I can live with the Torah of the Ramchal, which is the interpretation of it. But first and foremost, we have to become fundamentally aware that there is no Torah of the Ramchal without the Torah of the Arizal. And the Torah of the Arizal is built upon a particular and a singular notion of the Partsufim taking the 10 spheros and showing how all of the pratim, all of the parts that are typically seen as operating throughout the entire order of creation from Keser, Chachma, Bina, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and Malchus, as we kind of see in the Torah of the Ramak, or the Torah before the Arizal, where we lived with Spheros rather than Partsufim in a revealed way, the Arizal came to teach the secret of inter-inclusion and the secret of the formation of systems that will now operate in unison with all of their parts working together to create a gestalt or a configuration that is greater than the sum total of its parts, which means that each and every thing, each and every concept is really composed of the same material on a fractal level, but when looked at in its kind of general system, they operate in accordance with different modalities. There's 5 partsufim, 5 configurations through which HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kaviyachal is going to reveal his infinite light into the finite universe, and it's these 5 partsufim in the secret of faith which enables us to come to terms with the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu could be infinite, express himself in the finite reality, and not lose out on his infinitude, nor deny the reality of a finite reality. That's the secret of the partsufim, how both are true at once. It's the secret of Keser. Das is Megala Keser. And so the 5 partsufim are going to be the partsufim of Keser, which is going to be referred to as Atik Yoimin or Arich Anpin. Atik Yoimin represents the upper part of Keser, which is really the lowest part of the higher world, and Arich Anpin is going to reveal the lower part of Keser, which is the highest part of the lower world. Then we have the parts of Chachma, which is referred to as Abba. Then we have the parts of Ima, which we've discussed so often, which is Mashpiyat Malchus in case of emergency break glass situations, which is referred to as Ima. Then we have the parts of the lower spheres of Chesed, Gvur, Tveres, Netzach, Hod, and Yesod, which is the parts of Zeir Anpin, and then we have the parts of Nukva de Zeir Anpin, which is Malchus. Now, each and every one of those partsufim, in spite of the fact that they represent different things and they have different roles in the formation of how HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs, creates, and governs reality as we understand it, as revealed to us by his Nevi'im and the Tzaddikim Amitim, nevertheless, they're all composed of the same material. Each and every one is composed of 10 spheros, and each one of those 10 spheros is composed of 10 other spheros ad infinitum. And then it's the particular valence that is gained through the secret mystery of how HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world that directs the parts of into its own particular direction and role. And so we typically speak about the need to connect the partsufim of Zeir Anpin and Malchus, to connect the Torah and Tefillah, to connect Kudsha Bricha V'Shchinte. We also spent a lot of time talking about the relationship between the partsuf of Bina and Malchus, Ima and the daughter. We also are going to spend a lot of time talking about the relationship between Abba and Malchus, between the secret of Chachma and Malchus. Over here, what the Ramchal is going to be speaking about so often in so many of his writings, especially in the Ijer Rabbah, is the two distinct partsufim of Keser and Zeir Anpin, of Arich Anpin and Zeir Anpin. The fact that they both represent faces, so to speak, the elongated face and the truncated face, the large face and the small face, already implies that they are functioning within the same space of identification, yet it is their size and the expression of themselves that really represents the true difference. The fact that they're both referred to as Anpin, as the face of HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kavyachol, in the way that the language of the tzaddikim enables us to talk about the revelation of the infinite by way of the face, so to speak, which Moshe Rabbeinu in the end of the day does not have grasp on. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is able to describe it, but it's not because he has grasp on it, what Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't have grasp on. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is trying to describe it because he knows that he doesn't have grasp on it, and it's in coming to terms with not having grasp and describing it that suddenly we find that we actually do somehow, some way have grasp of it. But it's the secret of Arich Anpin, which is the parts of Keser, which is the elongated face, and the secret of Arichas Apayim, the extension of the face, openness, expansivity, Keser, something that is fundamentally above and beyond the laws of human conditioning and the human spirit of its goodness and its badness. It doesn't operate in accordance with right or wrong. It operates in that place above right and wrong. It operates in that place prior to the distinction between light and darkness. It represents the Ratzon HaPashut HaElyon that rests at the beginning, in the middle, underneath, and at the end of every aspect of existence, always ensuring that the historical unconscious and the human unconscious is always marching forward towards where it needs to get to. There is nothing that can stop that force of Arich Anpin. It is not limited to the human experience of historical awareness. It operates subterraneanly and above and beyond, inside and outside human experience, and it is that energy force, kavyachal, that's the wrong word to use, but it is that secret hanhag of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that he enables the world to always march towards the end, in the secret of the yichud of the Reisha and the Seifa, where it will be revealed that really everything was always in the hands of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, except the middle appears to be outside of the hands of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But the partsuf of Arich Anpin, that elongated face, that extension, that extended territory of Keser, where there's no separation between one thing or the other because it's prior to particularization, that represents Arich Anpin and that represents Keser. Now, again, that level is far, far, far infinitely removed from the atzmus of HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kavyachol. But nevertheless, in terms of our understanding, the partsuf of Arich Anpin, that lofty partsuf and organization principle of Keser, is the loftiest thing that our mind has the capacity of grasping. And it's also referred to on a certain level as infinite in relationship to the way that we typically function. Keser is the highest place that we grasp that which we cannot grasp. It's that which we cannot grasp entering into the consciousness of what we think that we can grasp by way of our desire, and in that place we come in contact with that which remains and exists above Arich Anpin. But at the end of the day, Arich Anpin is something that is outside of human grasp, and it represents the Hanhaga of Yichud, where Kadosh Baruch Hu is Megala, his unity at every point in history, in spite of whatever it is that appears to be going on. And then in real contradistinction, at least explicitly and externally, to that parts of Arich Anpin, you have the parts of Zeir Anpin, you have the parts of Kudsha B'richu, of the Torah, of Hanhagas HaMishpat, of the world in accordance to the laws and the bylaws of human experience, of the good and the bad, of that which is pure and that which is impure, that which is allowed and that which is not allowed, that which is right and that which is wrong, the slow and steady process of human experience and history with all of its mixed baggedness, the noga itself, that in-between place, that rishus, the milchama of rishus, ki teitze le-milchama, that's the place where the Ramchal says in Mesil Shisharim that we have to build ourselves up. That's a place of Hanhagas HaMishpat, of Zeir Anpin. Zeir Anpin is the perpetual awareness of maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong, maybe I'm in, maybe I'm out, maybe I'm holding by the Eitz Hadas, maybe I'm trying to access the Eitz HaChaim. But it is the process of human experience and our need to reveal HaKadosh Baruch Hu through the Emtza, through the middle period, that appears to be devoid of the illuminating light of the beginning and the end. So we have these two partsufim, Keser and Zeir Anpin. We have the Shem Eheke, which is that which will be in the future associated with Keser, and the Shem Havaya, which is associated with that which is the secret of the Torah and the secret of Zeir Anpin. We have Hanhagas HaYichud, which is HaKadosh Baruch Hu's infinite presence throughout every aspect of existence, transcending any of the limitation imaginable, both in self, world, and history, as well as the parts of Zeir Anpin, which operates very much in accordance with the limitations of history, self, and reality. And the nisim are when this partziv of Arich Anpin breaks open the limited constriction of the partziv of Zeir Anpin, and it's revealed to have always already been there. The deepest secret of all of that, Keser and Zeir Anpin are one and the same. Atiku huzav v'zahu atika. They're revealing themselves intertwined together, so that every time I'm accessing Hanagas HaMishpat and the struggle in this world, I'm also holding on to the secret of Hanagas HaYichud. And anytime I'm operating in the place of Hanagas HaYichud, I'm also holding on to the secret that I have to return back to the Torah. That's the secret of Ani v'ayin b'vasachas, the secret of the unification between the illumination of the beginning and its unity and the end of its unity with the disparity of the middle. And this balancing act, this battle between these two partsufim, and what takes place in between the transition between one or the other is what the Ramchal is going to be speaking about over here when he talks about human Zeirin, shortened days, which are obviously going to be connected to Zeir Anpin, the secret of Zeir Anpin, the secret of the parts of which operates in accordance with human understanding, in contradistinction to Arichas Yamim, which is going to be the parts of Arich and Keser, which operates above and beyond human consciousness. The Amar. Zak the Heilige Ramchal, human zeirun umare dechoiva dachik. Days are short, and the debt collector is placing pressure upon us. This is in truth a big secret. At the end of the Tikkun Zohar, it's written, Amar Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar says, Amai have kadminan chayin yoimin tzigiyin kagoin adam v'chulei. Why is it that the original generations of reality lived long, long lives like Adam Arishon? The Itmar Bey, as it says by Adam Arishon, Vayichi Adam Teisha Meo Shana v'Shloshim Shana, that Adam Arishon lived 930 years. V'Noach Teisha Meos v'Chamishim Shana, and Noach lived 950 years. V'chein Kula Darin Ad Noach, and everybody really until Noach lived very long lives. Hayu Chayin Shanin Sigiyin, they lived elongated, extended lives. The Avram ve'elech, but from the time of Avraham and ve'elech, Avraham and onwards, have mitma'atin b'shanin. Their years were diminished, and they were living shorter lives. Amar le Bari, his son responded to him. Rabbi Lazar said to Rabbi Shimon, Riboy shanin va'arichen diyuma inan me'arich anpin, that the extension of days, the elongation of years, the long life, that obviously comes from Arich Anpin. That comes from the Hanhaga of Keser. That comes from that place of Arich Anpin, of that Hanhaga Sayichud. Umiyuta diyumin, but the diminution of years, the diminishment of time, Mezer Anpin. It comes from Zer Anpin. Ubegin da, and as a result of this, as the Tikkunim, Ba'avram Itmar, by Avram Avinu, it says, Elu toldos hashamayim v'ha'aretz BaMarom. This is the story, this is the history of the heavens and the earth in their formation, in their creation. BaMarom, we know, is the Osios of Avram. It's the beginning of Olam HaTikun. But over there we see it's written with a hey zeira. It's written with a small hey. Now, so we see again that the elongation of days, the Arichas Yamim, applies to everybody up until Avram Avinu, and then from Avram Avinu and on, it's smallness of days, which implies the connectivity between the parts of Zeir Anpin. So obviously what the Ramchal is going to say is, Adarabba Ibchem Mistabra Olam Elyonim Lamata V'Tachtonim Lamala. How could it be that Avram Avinu, who was the first Yid, Avram Avinu, who was the first Tzaddik, Avram Avinu, who was the one who lived in accordance with the principles of the Torah that he intuited from his two kidneys, how is it that he represents the lower principle of Zeir Anpin and the shortened days when Adam and Noach, who weren't Jewish, who didn't have that accessibility to the Torah itself, they were operating from the perspective of Arichas Anpin, from the elongation of days. So Zakt the Heilige Ramchal. We have to understand. How can we understand that the years of Avram were going to be less than the years of Adam and Noach? That in the days of Adam and Noach, that the governance and the principles through which HaKadosh Baruch Hu ran the world were by way of that elevated status of Keser and Arich Anpin. But b'yemei Avram Avinu umimenu lahala, but from the days of Avram Avinu and onwards, that it's going to be operating according to the principle of Zeir Anpin. Ube'emes zeh hadavar hu sod min sodos ha'amukim v'haniflayim ma'od ma'od. Every word that the Ramchal uses in this book is precise. Every word is meant to reawaken a person to the urgency and the vibrancy of the ideas that are right in front of us for our healing. Ube'emes, and in truth, zeh hadavar, this inyan, this matter, who sod min sodos ha'amukim v'haniflaim. This is a secret of the deepest and most wondrous secrets. Hinek siv, the pasuk says, Adam lahavel dama, that the human being appears to have been created for nothingness. V'tira she'eno omer. And look, when David HaMelech says it appears, it doesn't say Adam lahevel doma. It doesn't imply that it's imaginative, that if we use our imagination, it will appear that the human being is kind of stuck in this place. Because in truth, the human being, to a certain degree, is dama, is actually stuck in that place. V'zes sod hapasuk gamkein. And this is the secret of the pasuk. The Adam biyakar bal yalin nimshal kebehemos nidmu. That the individual will not rest assuredly because they operate as if they were animals. So the Ramchal wants to understand, are we saying they're like animals? Are we saying that the human being can be imagined to be like an animal? Or perhaps there's more of an inherent connection between the human being and the animal that is hinted to in this imaginative connection. So Zakt the Heilige Ramchal, Da. Kilo ka'avoda asher lanu ata hi ha'avoda shahaitu re'uya la'adam berishona. The spiritual work that rests in front of us right now, our experience in this world, as it exists right now, is not the way that it was meant to be in the beginning with Adam Harishon. Things are different. The way we function now is not the ideal nature in which things are meant to function. And see clearly how things operate and flow in accordance to their levels. Ki ad Avram lo hivdil hakadosh baruch hu uma ben haumos v'haya chayfetz shetikun kol ha'olam b'shav. Prior to Adam Harishon, what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted was for the entirety of existence to be rectified in an equal measure. And therefore there was no separation between the Jewish nation and all of the other nations, because everybody was meant to be revealing the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in equal measure. That was prior to Avram Avinu. V'tira od, and see furthermore, Sheme Avram v'Yitzchak hutzrach l'tzeis Esav b'Yishmael. What you find by Avram and Yitzchak is something that you didn't find by the previous generations, which is the need for birurim, the need for expression that by definition will take shape by way of first and foremost getting rid of the dross, getting rid of the extra, getting rid of the surplus, getting rid of the immature, imbalanced expression of that thing. Avram is chesed, and the immature, imbalanced kind of infantile expression of that is Yishmael. Yitzchak is Gvura, and the infantile, undeveloped expression of that is Esav. But why don't we see this need for birurim and the clarification of the waste prior to the fruit itself? Why do we only see this by Avram Avinu and on? And what is the connection between Avram Avinu and on being shorter years and being years that are associated with the separation between the Jewish people from all other nations? But Zakta Heilige Ramchal, this separation is in and of itself the tikkun of Avram and Yitzchak. Masha'en came, but we don't see this betchila in the beginning from Adam and Noach, because still there was a notion that everything in existence was meant to reveal goodness. From the perspective of Arich Anpin, from the perspective of Keser, nothing is anything other than the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu being reflected. It's only in Zeir Anpin, with Avram Avinu and on, that we begin to have a real separation between good and bad, what's allowed and what's not allowed. V'od tira, and a person should look even more into the matter. Sha'avram kiyim kol haTorah. We see that Avram was able to accomplish intuitively, to whatever degree that Chazal meant that, in accordance with the Meforshim, so Avram Avinu was capable of understanding the entirety of the Torah, which Adam Arishon and Noach HaTzadik did not do. V'davar zeh lo ne'emar, lo ba'adam, v'lo b'mesushelach, v'lo b'noach. We don't see the secret of the Torah. We don't see the secret of Zeir Anpin. We don't see the secret of the tzimtzum within the particularities of the Torah, within the smallness of human experience, within the bechira of it all. We don't see that by mesushelach or Adam or Noach. V'ata afarish l'cha kol eila hadvarim be'er heitev b'siyata d'shmaya. And now, says the Ramchal, I'm going to explain all of this to you in a clarified way. So we're going to just learn one more paragraph. Hine, ha'adam kishenivra, lo haisa bo zu ha'maklal. When Adam Arishon was created, when the world was created in its ideal shape prior to Chet of Adam Arishon, prior to the degradation of reality, the deliberate degradation of reality, but nevertheless there was a moment prior to the degradation of reality where Adam Arishon was created without any extra, without any surplus, without any meaninglessness, without any despondency that comes about from the excess of things. Now again, it's fundamental to be aware, Adam Arishon was not perfect, nothing is ever perfect. Adam Arishon was still placed in Gan Eden, La'avdu U'Lashamra, in order to fix and rectify, both of which imply imply the need to be careful, the need to be on guard, which implies the need for a furthering of a perfection which is not yet present. So Adam Arishon was certainly not perfect, but nevertheless he was born purified. He didn't have any excess. The body itself was refined. And all Adam Arishon had to really do was elevate the worlds up to their true root source, which was the secret of Shabbos Kodesh. Had Adam Arishon been patient enough to engage with the body until Shabbos, he would have been able to just elevate the deficiency back up to the wholeness, and the Geula Shlema would have taken place. Meaning to say, he had to accomplish and be mashlim, the tikkun, the rectification that HaKadosh Baruch Hu desired at the creation, but it wasn't the rectification of getting rid of the excess and getting rid of the bad in order to reveal the good. There was no bad to get rid of. It was simply adding good. It was simply moving upwards. And at that point, there was still a Yetzer Hara. Vada, there was a Yetzer Hara. There's always a Yetzer Hara. There was never a time where there wasn't a Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara is a Malach Kadosh that is fundamentally necessary for the inter-inclusion and the full development of the self in its self-actualization. Without the Yetzer Hara, there's nothing. Without the Yetzer Hara, there's no existence, there's no vitality. So the Yetzer Hara Avada existed, but the Yetzer Hara existed in a rectified way. The whole Ra Choyzer L'Tov, and all of the negativity was shown to be fundamentally rooted and returned back to the goodness that was going to be revealed, as it is going to be revealed at the end of the rectification. The way it was in the beginning is the way that it's going to be in the end, but we know that we're operating in that middle period where it is not connected to the beginning in any explicit way, nor is it connected yet to the end, which will be Ezra Hashem be soon take it from Miyad. Ki or hakadusha hayagover, the light of holiness was strengthened to such a degree that it overcame all concealment. And the tikkun, the rectification of a noga, that in between place of rishus, the chalalo shel rishus, which is undetermined and undefined, was revealed to be as illuminative as the light itself, meaning to say that all of the potential towards choice was rectified, and it was meant to be brought up to that place of goodness rather than being drawn down to the place of the opposite of goodness, God forbid. There was no tumah at that point. Tumah was present. The Vada tumah was available. Whenever there's creation, as Rabbeinu says, as Rabbi Nachman says in Torah, Nun Aleph, there's a susceptibility to tumah. But nevertheless, the tumah had not congealed itself yet in the time of Adam Arishon. And see later on when we discuss, and the Ramchal always, even in the beginning, has his eyes on what was going to be written in the end. Ki'ilu, the Ramchal had this full text in front of him. He's referencing parts of the book later on that are going to be revealed to describe the very thing that he's describing right now, which means to say he's not writing unconsciously. He's very fundamentally, consciously aware of the entire project that he's holding, the past, present, and the future together in one through the secret of writing, but he has access to every part of it. And this is going to be discussed, that unification and that light of Arich Anpin. It's going to be discussed when we discuss the Urcha, the Plugsa, the Shari, that line, that clear line at the center of all of the hairs, which represents that baldness, that represents a place without concealment, a place without being caught up in the particular hairs of each thing. So the reason that Adam Rishon didn't have to accomplish the 613 mitzvos, because the mitzvos and the Maisim Tovim and the Bechira, that operates lamata in accordance with the Hanaga of Zeir Anpin, with the shortened face, which starts with Avram Avinu, which starts the Jewish people, which starts the work of the Torah, which starts the difficult birurim of clarification of Yishmael and Esav v'chulei. Aval derech Adam Rishon no kachaya. Adam Rishon had a very different path of avodah. It was the path of avodah of Arich Anpin. All Adam Rishon had to do was ensure that he didn't mess things up. He didn't have to go out and earn more. There was no mitzvah that was allotted to him. He just had something that he shouldn't do. Don't eat from the Eitz Hadas, meaning don't descend out of your pre-existent state. Operate and be calm in the way that you are, and allow yourself to receive the kedusha that is strengthening itself and being revealed from below, from above, up until the day of Shabbos. And all that Adam Rishon really had to do was not mess up, not to ensure that the light doesn't come down. And all of the effulgence and the unfolding of the kedusha would be enough to rectify Adam Arishon in the Hanhaga of Arich Anpin, in the secret of transforming the Yetzer Hara itself and the body into the secret of Tom Ma'od. At that point, the body was meant to be revelatory of the deepest light, which is the veryness of it all, which is the secret of Shabbos Kodesh. And the entirety of existence would have been metuken miyad. Again, again, that doesn't mean absolute tikkun and return back to the infinite itself, because as Ramchal says, there's infinite shlavim of tikkun until the point that the mind can no longer even handle contemplation of what the next level of tikkun is going to look like. But it's not because we've reached it, but only because of kedushas l'malam mikdushas eichem. So every time that the Ramchal uses a lashon that implies a final kind of completion of things, it's only relative to the next level of things. It's the Shar Hanun that stands to reveal above it the next 50 gates and the next 50 gates, etc., etc. V'zeh soid ha'arich Anpin hamashpia roiv hakadusha umetaken lezer Anpin atzmo. And this is the secret of how Kadosh Baruch Hu was running the world when he ran it in accordance with the partsuf of Arich Anpin, where Keser reigns supreme, and it was that Hanhagas HaYichud, that illumination of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's unity within history itself, which was revealing its intense Kedusha, and it was rectifying the possibility of Zeir Anpin, the possibility of separation where there's good and bad and the need to choose between right and wrong. Ach b'Zeir Anpin, but later on, down below in the parts of Zeir Anpin, which is the place of Avram Avinu, Misha Tzarech L'takin Derech Sham, someone who wants to operate in accordance with the work that needs to be done in that place, there a person has to put in an immense amount of effort. They have to operate in accordance with the mitzvos, in accordance with the Torah, unlike Adam and Mesushelach and Noach. It's much more of the work. And we have to understand that the animals, in the way that they existed prior to the Chet of Adam Arishon in Gan Eden, they operated in accordance with the level at which we operate nowadays. The human self, as it stands right now, is in truth operating at the level that the animals were operating prior to the Chet of Adam Arishon, which is why we weren't allowed to eat meat then, and it's why within vegetarianism, as Rav Kook understood it, there is a messianic ideal reflective of the fact that we are returning back to a place of the inherent kedusha of Teva itself, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Megala himself from that place as much as he is from the other way. And in that place, there's an elevation, which is what would happen when the Arizal and his Chavraya Kadisha would go out to Svas. They would go out to the Tzafon, they would go out to the north. And these are the tzaddikim who rest in the north and they protect the north. These are the tzaddikim kadoshim asher ba'aretz sema v'Adir kachat seibam. These are the secret of Mat Rav Tuvcha shetzafant l'reyecha. How strong and powerful is the goodness that rests hidden away in the north. And that secret of Mitzafon Tiftach Hara, that there appears to be negativity that comes forth from the north, but nevertheless, it's specifically from that encounter with difficulty in the north that will come to open up the goodness that is hidden within that negativity, the ability to reveal Marav Tuvcha Ser Shafant L'Reyecha, the goodness that is hidden away in the concealment. And from that place, we can rely on the tzaddikim of Rabbi Shimon, and the Tanayim HaKadoshim, and the Arizal and the Ramak and all of the tzaddikim. But when the Arizal would go out to daven Kabbalah Shabbos with his chevra, and they would look out to the sadeh, they would look out to the field, the story goes in Shivchei Ha'ari that the animals in the field would stand up on their hind legs, because that wasn't just a miracle, it was the revelation that on Shabbos there's a rectification of the world back to the way that it was meant to be for a moment, and the secret of Me'en Olam Haba and the secret of the fires of hell pausing for Shabbos Kodesh, that animals returned back to their pre-Chet state. They ascended back up to that almost human condition that we experience now. And so that's what the Ramchal is saying over here, that when we talk about the comparison between humans and animals, it's not just an imaginative comparison. It's the secret that prior to the Chet of Adam, when things operated in accordance with the principle of Arich Anpin, and from the Hanhagas HaYichud, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Ratzon is miskala from every single thing imaginable, and one not need operate in accordance with the path of human effort and choosing in order to reveal HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light, from that perspective of Keser, from that perspective of Hanhagas HaYichud, from that perspective of Arich Anpin, because it's not up to us to mess it up. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is fundamentally running the show without any deviation from that awareness. Back then, in that time, the animals in the time of Adam Arishon, before the Chet, operated in the level in which human beings function now. And this is the secret of what Chazal say, Anu kechamorim, that we are mamish like the donkeys. We are mamish like the donkeys of the Tanaim. And we're not even like the donkey of Rav Pinchas ben Yair, meaning to say that the body is meant to be refined. The chumrius, that's the secret of Mashiach Tzidkenu. Ani v'roichev al chamor. Adam kvar marti loy haya loy l'troch. Because back then, there was really no need for the individual to utilize Bechira. There was no need for the individual to go and descend into this place of the effort and the Bechira that Avram Avinu is opening up in the secret of Zeir Anpin and the secret of the shortness of days. Ela tikuno besod asika kadisha lahasika kadusha gedola. Rather, his tikkun was by way of the Keser Elyon, which is the secret of Atika Kadisha, which is the upper point of Arich Anpin. That is what the tzaddikim before Avram Avinu had to do. Lahasik HaKadusha HaGadola, just to grasp the Kedusha. And therefore, there didn't have to be a separation between the Adam and the Behema. The Behemos Hayalahem La'avoid Ha'adam Litrach B'sad HaTareg Mitzvos. And the animals back then, the avoid of the animals, the Nachash, which was representative of the animal, they were the ones who were meant to do the tikkun for the Adam. The Adam himself was meant to operate in a place of Arich Anpin. The behemos were going to do the avodah. Now we're like the animals, so we have to do the avodah. We operate in the place of Zeir Anpin now. But back then it was the animals, and now we're like the animals. We're in the role of the animals, which is why we encounter the Nefesh Bahamis. And our job is to uncover the secret of Adab Behema Teshias Hashem, to elevate the behema back up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as we're going to see. But in truth, in accordance with the way that we function now, which is the opposite of the way that Adam Arishon functioned, in accordance with the parts of Zeir Anpin and the shortness of days and the need for effort, this is what the animals prior to the Chet were meant to do. It was up to the animals to do that work. And that would have rectified the need for effort in this world. That's the secret of, if you can't learn it from the Torah, go and learn it from the animals, because on a certain level, there's an inherent Torah to the animals. And only afterwards, through the diminution of the worlds that took place as a result of Chet of Adam Arishon, Yarad Ha'adam L'madrigas Behema. The individual descended down to the level of the animal, so now we have to be Makabel Ol Malchus Shamayim, to be Makabel the Ol of the mitzvos. Why shouldn't I have to understand the mitzvos? Why don't I have to understand the secrets of the mitzvos or the reasons of the mitzvos? Because in truth, I have to be Makam the mitzvos like an animal. Like an animal. That was the job of the animals. I'm an animal now. The Ben Adam is an animal. The Ben Adam is meant to be makabel ol malchus shamayim and to do the avodah l'maisa l'mal mitam v'das without any need for understanding, just to do it without understanding. I understand the choosing that I have to live with faith, and from that point forward, the avodah doesn't need to have a particular wisdom to it. It's only after the chet that we're commanded. And this is the secret of the pasuk that the Ramchal brought earlier, that implies that human beings operate in a way that is similar to the animals, but it doesn't simply mean it's an imaginative device and a metaphoric kind of distance between the Adam and the behema, but rather that there's really an inherently shared connection. That in truth, from that perspective of Arich Anpin, and that on the level of Arich Anpin, there was a difference between the Adam and the Behema, because the Behema was meant to do the Avodah, and the Adam was meant to live the Menucha. But nowadays, in our Avodah, where we don't have Menucha, and we're stuck in the Avodah, there's really no difference between us and the animals. The Husoid, and this is the secret of Adam Lahavel Dama, that there's a real similarity between the human being and the animal. Veloy doimet doesn't mean it's just an imaginative extrapolation from one category to the next by way of metaphor. Rather, they share a certain principle. And I will reveal this, I will explain all of this to you a little bit later on. And so we're going to pause here right now. And we're going to continue, perhaps even tomorrow, to kind of finish up on this shlav of Nekuda. But the important thing to keep in mind here is something that we've known all along, and what we continuously are repeating to ourselves over and over, is that the entire purpose of the degradation, the entire purpose of the descent down from the darga of Arich Anpin into the darga of Zeir Anpin, into the need for Bechira, is to be Magdil, Yeshuos Yaakov, is to extend and amplify and reveal the intensification and the potentiation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's presence with more intensity, because there is nothing greater than the individual uncovering the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu from within the concealment. And so this descent is avada ayurida l'tzarech aliyah. And this is what the Ramchal is going to point out, that seemingly Adam Arishon and Noah, who are lower than Avram, they're operating in the place of Arich Anpin, above and beyond the necessity of Torah. Avram Avinu, who's higher than them, is operating from a place of Zeir Anpin, where there's a need to engage in the Torah, and it's the Zeira, and it's the secret of Zeir Anpin. But that's the emes. It's Adir Ibcha Mistabra, specifically within the concealment, the need for Bechira, the need to earn, the need to work through the concealment and the birurim. We are going to reveal a higher level of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's yichud than what could have been revealed simply by the operation of Arich Anpin. The secret is revealing Atika Huzav V'zahu Atika. It's not enough to just live in Atika. It's not enough to live without the Torah, God forbid. It's to reveal how the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals himself within the Torah. And furthermore, without the Torah, we have no accessibility to Atika Kadisha. And so we're going to see how this descent is obviously for the sake of an ascent, and we're going to come to understand the Maila of Avram Avinu's neshama, which is the beginning of concealment, the beginning of the need to work, the beginning for the need for bechira and birur and avoida and yagia and the opposite of menucha and the savlanus that's dependent on each and every step in this world. And that's what we're going to see. This entire sefer, like we said, is medicinal to the degree that it looks at every symptom of being human, all of the secondary elements of our lives that we feel are because we're not operating in a place of yichud. That's why I'm feeling this way. What the Ramchal is going to show, and what all of the tzaddikim are showing, is that you're right. There is an ideal operating system, but once you're not operating there anymore, then it is fundamental that we are aware that where I am right now is the way that it needs to be, and it's from the place that I'm at right now that I'm going to reveal something that could not have been revealed had I never found myself in this place. As the Heilige Rabbi Shimon says to Rav Pinchas ben Yair, where he says, Rav Pinchas ben Yair is crying after the Ma'ara, after the cave, and he says, Oili shari isi bikach, woe to me that I've seen you as such, and Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai says, Oilucha shari isi bikach, woe to you that you've seen me as such, Ashrecha shari isi bikach, praiseworthy are you for have seen me as such, Sheim leira isi bikach, if you didn't see me as such, leha isi bikach, I wouldn't have been as such, because it's specifically through the things that you feel are grotesque and difficult that I uncover the true power of who I am, of refining the element of Nasa Adam Never Bavarecha, the secret of the Torah of the Adam, not to allow the Torah to stam be in Shemayim and the secret of Arich Anpin, but to draw it down into the Hanhag of Zeir Anpin and to reveal the Hanhag of Arich Anpin within Zeir Anpin, the human Aruchin within the human Zeir, and as Rabbi Nachman talks about so often, of extending and elongated the short days, of revealing the light of Keser within Zeir Anpin, and in that way we're going to come to understand the singular thread in which Avram Avinu, that diminished capacity of the human being to function in accordance with the greatest ideals, and the need to descend down into the particularization of day-to-day struggle and bechira and the mitzvos themselves, we're going to see how that is the singular path through which Das of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Das of Mashiach is megala to be miyached, the emsa and that apparent place of deficiency with the unity of the beginning and the end, to reveal the interconnectivity of all things in a way that is greater than it could have been done without the separation in front of our eyes. Be'ezras Hashem.